I'm gonna do one more sound check. Evan, can you hear me okay still?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect, thank you. And will this be automatically going live right at noon, or do I need to click something?
No, I will kind of initiate it. So
okay,
we're good to go.
There's Max. I was about to text you.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't even forget to send the kind of qualification stuff. I'll send that over to you hopefully this afternoon.
All right. I'll send a reminder text to you at 3 p.m.
All right, sounds good. All right, we're officially at noon. So we should be going live at any point in time here. So we'll give it just another second. I guess while we're waiting, I'm going to start pounding you with questions, Max. I know it's kind of out of the blue. Which listings do you have up right now?
I have Saturn Condo, Portland Gold, which we need to talk about Portland Gold, King Street, Cheyenne, Shenandoah, and then
Yeah, I know Woodstock just went under. I was just looking at that contract a second ago.
Yeah, Woodstock just went under, and then Pikes Peak Highway will be hitting whenever we can get photography figured out, because it's absolute nightmare with the Airbnb bookings for it. So we have like a small window tomorrow if I'm really, really lucky, and then they have to go back for twilight photos after that. Yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
While we're waiting for a few more people to hop online, well, do you want to go and tell people about that listing? So it's kind of a sneak peek into anyone who might be interested.
Yeah. So it's
Hey Jared.
Hey guys. Yeah, so 4840 Pikes Peak Highway, 4860 Pikes Peak Highway, duplex. Not too sure what the exact price is that we're going to be listing it at, but it's going to be somewhere mid 800s. It's about 3,200 square foot. Comes with 3.5 acres, and it is on the beginning of the Pikes Peak Highway. So lots of bookings, I mean, tons throughout the summer. Does very, very well, about 70 grand a year, I think, on Airbnb. And that's with no optimization and no help. Definitely could use some better pictures on Airbnb, but yeah, fun property. I mean, someone should love it. Definitely cool owner occupy if someone could swing it as well. But lots of land to do stuff with. Talk to the county about that, and if you grade it appropriately as well, which would be a headache. It's very steep, but they would let you do an ADU or a garage or something. Variance for sure to subdivide. That she was like, well, each of these are 5 acres, and we don't deviate from that. And I was like, okay, then how did this 3.5 acres sneak in here? And she didn't know, of course. But yeah, cool listing for sure. Absolutely would be really fun. I'd like to personally own it, but yeah, I can't afford it quite yet.
Can't buy them all. If I could buy every listing I had, I'd be very broke. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, cool. We'll go ahead and start jumping into things now. We're a few minutes into it. I'm sure some other people will be able to log in as they're coming online. And for anyone who's joining in, don't hesitate to jump into the conversation at any point in time. So just go ahead and unmute yourself, ask questions as we're going through it, and we'll start digging into the data. So let me get my other screen shared here in just a second. Let's see. Oh, no. There we go. I get that to be full screen. All right. Can everyone see the slideshow? Looks good. Okay. Gonna take that head nod as a yes. Got something. Appreciate it. All right. So this is the May update, but we're gonna actually be reviewing April data. So we're always looking at real estate data in arrears. And usually the data always takes several days to fully finalize because we got agents that are uploading the data maybe several days after the property is already closed. So that's why we always wait a week or two into the month to do these presentations. So with that said, we'll kind of go through this in the same format we do every month. We'll go and start with home values. So amazingly, things are a little bit on the up and up, but not by much. In fact, the year-over-year median price was at a flat zero. It was an exact $476,000. And my wife puts this data together, and she kept on calling me. She's like, I think there's something wrong with the numbers. Like, it's coming back at 0%. That doesn't seem right. I was like, anyway, so I ended up having to do a deep dive on it to try and figure out if she was wrong. But no, she was right. She did everything just as it should, and just happened to be exactly 476 at the median price for single-family homes in the county last April. And so we've had absolutely no appreciation in 12 months here. Average, if you look at the average, it is up a little bit more. I do prefer to look at the median over average only because the average number gets skewed by a lot of the $1 million+ homes. And so, probably just in April, we had one or two more homes sell that were above that $1 million price point. So ultimately, median is really the number that most people are looking at when they're looking at their stats. So not, even average, it's really not much. Median's the flat. And if I had to, get my crystal ball out, I wouldn't be surprised if we're having the same conversation this time next year where things are still very close to that 0% year-over-year price change. There's just not a whole lot of hope for big appreciation throughout 2025, even 2026, just not really expecting a whole lot until interest rates come down. We're going to have to really see quite a bit of well, let me back up. Even if interest rates do come down quite a bit, I still wouldn't anticipate there would be a big fluctuation just because we have so much inventory. I think what we're really going to need to see is overall wage growth, and it's going to be a very slow progression up as inflation continues to eat away at expenses. People are going to be asking for more, wage increases. Being an employer myself, we're constantly having to reevaluate where our employees' wages are at, and making sure that they're that they're being promoted both based on performance, but we also don't want them to get behind on their expenses just simply because of inflation eating away at just how much things cost in their budget. So anyways, long story short, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of improvement over the next 12 months. The same numbers, just averaging out over 12 months, so full year. So over the last 12 months, we've been at a median price about $470,000 here in the county for single family homes. So, and again, you can kind of see that graph there. We're still heading up. It's kind of a very slow progression upwards. We kind of peaked there in about the middle of 2022, dipped down real quick, and then we've been slowly progressing back up. So, if you look at this graph, we're at the highest level we've ever been. But again, it's a real slow growth, which I can tell you is real tough for people who have purchased homes in 2022 and 2023. There's always a percentage of buyers who end up looking to resell their homes after buying them 2 to 3 years. Could be military, they're getting their PCS orders. Could be just other job relocation. Could be a death in the family, got to move. Could be some sort of other, disaster in their life that forces them to have to sell and move somewhere else. And so for those folks that bought in 2022 or even 2023 and used a very high leverage loan, I can tell you they are really struggling. So we're definitely seeing a lot more short sales right now, not necessarily because the home value is significantly less than what they bought it for. It's that the total closing costs, their mortgage origination fees, they just really haven't paid that principal balance down enough. And so they're having to do a short sale just to get out from under their property. I'd say a lot of people are doing short sales. They're not going to foreclosure. I think it was a couple weeks ago, I didn't see a single property up on the foreclosure auction market. And because the few that are going to foreclosure, which I'd say most weeks I see about 3 or 4, the bulk majority are going back to the bank or the plaintiff. If you watch the foreclosure market, it'll be labeled as the plaintiff. And so they're going back to the bank just because there's no margins in there for investors to try and get a really good deal right now. Because a bank is always going to put their initial bid out there for what is currently owed to them. And they do that because if they end up getting more than that dollar amount, then it'll go to the second lien position, or if there is no second lien position, or all mortgages get paid off on the property, or all liens, then it goes back to the homeowner. So small chance the homeowner will get some cash back, but that's pretty rare. Listing inventory, still seeing that creep up. So total active listings in April was about 3,350. With only about 1,043 selling. So just about under a third of those homes are selling. Again, if you're trying to sell a home in the market right now, you really got to be competitive. I personally have one of my properties on the market, and we came in significantly under what other homes were going for. And we managed, it still took, I think, about 2 weeks to get it sold. But we are under contract. We'll see if it goes to closing. And ultimately, I chose to make that decision chose to come in lower than the comps is because I know how high the days on market is, and I know I don't want to be sitting on the market for 2 or 3 months as this listing inventory continues to climb. Now, you do kind of see these annual up-down curve fluctuations. So what the May data will bring in June when we review it will be a good question. I suspect it'll probably still be creeping upwards through June, July, and August. And then usually by August, we're starting to see things taper down. Like usually it's about here, somewhere around here is where you start to see August. So people are often still trying to hopefully get their home sold in July. But then once that back to school season kicks in, people are saying, okay, I guess we're going to be locked in for another year. So you start to see people take their homes off the market, usually with a plan to, try again next year. So with that said, I anticipate we're still going to probably see this curve kind of come up just a little bit more with more inventory. So, underpricing the property to get it sold quickly is to your advantage right now if you're trying to sell something, if you're going to try and get it sold this summer, which I would definitely recommend. If you're not getting the action you want on the property, listen to your agents, take the price reductions quick and fast. Don't wait too long, and don't make them too small. You got to make them pretty dramatic. All right. Again, total new listing inventory. So 1722 new listings in April, about on par for where we were last year. In terms of what we'll see for May, I wouldn't be surprised if we're somewhere around here. It might be a little bit of a spike up, might be a little bit of a spike down. But anticipate that usually May data is not too far off from April. And then that's really because April typically brings, in fact, I was just looking at this earlier this morning, April almost always has the highest number of new listings every year. There was a couple of years where we actually saw May was the highest number. So that does happen. And it's, given the market conditions that we're in, it's very possible that could happen this year. Not because people are, waiting for any particular reason. It's just things aren't selling. And so you just never really know what's going to happen with this new listing activity. But I would anticipate quite a few new homes come on the market. And then we'll start to see that drop off. Usually it's about June, July is where we start to see it go down. And of course, December is always our bottom number right there. Number of homes sold last month, 31%. So just under a third. So again, if you are trying to sell a home right now, you have to outcompete your competition, which is going to be other sellers, 2 out of 3 times. So if you're not the one out of 3 that's the cheapest option, or let me rephrase that, the most valuable option, then you're probably going to be sitting on the market next month and possibly a month after that. Really, when it comes to creating value, there's only 2 ways we can create value. That's either you can improve the property value, improve the property itself. That could be a kitchen or bathroom remodel, painting or flooring. Painting or flooring is a very cheap way to go get a lot of bang for your buck when it comes to value. Or if you're already on the market, then I'd suggest just dropping your price. So you can improve the value to the buyer by decreasing the price. And that'll help you get more activity when you're on the market. And so I know I've been talking about sellers a lot. If you're a buyer right now, it's a great time to be a buyer. It is absolutely a buyer's market. Buyers get a lot of advantages. They have a lot of room to negotiate right now. Most homes are selling with seller concessions. So that's going to be money paid by the seller to the buyer to cover some of their closing costs. I've very rarely seen an as-is contract. A lot of buyers are not only getting their seller concessions, but they're also asking for a lot of repairs on their inspection objection documents. So it's kind of a really good time to be buying. Now, again, if you're going to be buying and intending to sell in that 2 to 3 year time frame, I don't recommend it. The cost of selling is so much that that only really works out well in a highly appreciative market. If you're going to be buying, holding on to it 5, 6 years, absolutely. Don't rent, aim to buy if you're going to be here for 5 or 6 years. It's definitely more advantageous to be a homeowner than a renter for a 5, 6 year time frame. And we'll get into those numbers a little bit later. All right, continuous days on market, or CDOM. That's good. For April is 52 days, so good drop right there, which is always nice to see. So the sellers who did sell, they sold in less amount of time. So that's always interesting, because if only 1 out of 3 sellers actually sold, but we had a drop in price decrease. I suspect that it's the newer listings that are coming on the market that are the ones that are actually selling. So they're the ones who are fresh on the market, who have the most up-to-date and recent information. They're pricing their homes more aggressively to get it sold. So the people who are above this 52-day marker, they're going to be the ones who probably came on the market January, February, March, and they're probably definitely pushing over 100 days at this point in time. So if you're working with a good agent or agent team, they should be updating you as a seller every week with what your essentially what's going on with your activity, listing activity, in terms of how many people are coming out to see it, how many people are looking at it online, and just keeping you informed with that information so that you know if you're priced accordingly. If you're not priced accordingly, then you're not going to get any activity. And if you're not working with an agent who's keeping you up to date every week, then give us a call. We'll happily take that listing over. Months of inventory, so just a small tick up to 3.2 right there. I think we're at 3.1 last month. Again, definitely a buyer's market. So what month of inventory means is that with the number of homes that sold last month, with the current total number of listings, we would sell every available listing in 3.2 months. So that's quite a few. Again, it's not as bad as it was back here in 2015. That was very much a buyer's market. You can see it dropped off pretty hard. Again, we're definitely in a buyer's market. I wouldn't say we're in, the best buyer's market we've ever seen. That would have been 2009, 10, 11. The tricky part, of course, back then was financing was extremely tough. Financing is more available now today than it was back after the 2008 crash. However, your total interest rate is more than what it was back then. And so you just got to keep that in mind. That means your monthly holding costs are also going to be a little bit more. Overall, I anticipate this will probably stay about flat for the summertime. You can kind of see it kind of made some flat changes there. That's a little earlier last year, but I wouldn't expect any major shifts for the next couple months. I could be wrong, just totally guessing here, but I anticipate it'll be about the same. Sales price to list price ratio. So these were interesting enough to say, and that means most people are doing about one price drop, or let me rephrase that. They had to do multiple price drops to get to this point, but almost always they were about 95-ish% from the price they went on the market to the price they actually sold at. So what that means is that if you come on the market, let's say $100, then you probably are going to be accepting a contract for about $95. So sellers are very negotiable right now. They're definitely taking offers below asking price. So if you're a buyer, definitely, don't feel like you need to come in at the full ask price. Now, exceptions to every rule, of course. If the home just came on the market today and you're submitting an offer today, that seller is going to expect that you're going to submit a full price offer, because at the very least, they're going to want to see what other activity they can get over the next several days before getting too excited about accepting something less than their asking price. All right, loan purchase price by loan types or sale types. Conventional always being the biggest at 40% right here. FHA at 14%, VA at 30%. So that one's actually ticking down just a little bit. Seeing more of a sale in other, which is not totally surprising. I mean, that could be seller financing. That could be a VA assumption would fall into that category. Cash always stays about the same. And yeah, FHA and cash are about the same. The reason why I always like to show this is really for the FHA and VA numbers. So these two combined equal about 48%, nearly half of our total buyer pool is FHA and VA buyers. So if you're selling a residential property, and that residential being anything single family, duplex, triplex, or fourplex, you really want to make sure that your property can meet the FHA and VA guidelines. That's going to be, looking out for chip and peeling paint on the exterior, or on the interior if the property is older than 1978. I know FHA, you can't have things, a whole bunch of junk in the crawl space. I've seen that one on appraisal condition. Can't have any broken or cracked window panes on a VA loan. And so you really want to make sure that if you're selling a home, you're not cutting out half of your buyer pool by not accepting FHA and VA loans. But in order to accept it, your property has to meet certain condition requirements. So you might need to do exterior painting. You might need to replace some flooring so there's no trip hazards. You might need to install some handrails on the stairs, stuff like that. And so if you're thinking about selling and you're worried your home may not meet that condition for an FHA or VA loan before you go on the market, give us a call. Max and I are happy to do free walkthroughs, totally complimentary, just to try and take a look at everything and see if there's any concerns for meeting FHA and VA guidelines. All right, interest rates are at about 6.76, so mild decrease. Again, not anything to brag about at the moment. Been saying pretty steady at the moment. We're certainly not right here where it's getting up to 7 and 8, but we're definitely not back down anywhere close to 5s yet. You can think about buying down your mortgage. So if you think you're going to be in your home for more than 5 years, I would really talk to your lender about buying that mortgage rate down. It's usually called buying points. And so a point is going to be 1% of the total loan amount. So if you're buying a property for, let's say, $200,000, 20% down would give you a $160,000 loan amount. 1 point would be 1% of 160,000 or 1,600. And that 1 point might bring you down anywhere from a quarter to maybe a 3/4% interest rate. So chat with your lender, ask them what the rate stack is. A rate stack just sort of gives you a list of numbers between the different, sorry, I hope somebody's blowing me up at the moment on text. So hopefully you don't hear that coming through. But a rate stack essentially just lists all of your different interest rates that are available to you. Some are going to be buying points, and there's actually an option where you can sell points. If that'll give you a higher interest rate but lower closing costs. And there are some circumstances where that makes sense to do, but for the most part, I'd say right now it probably makes more sense to buy points or just take the par rate. Par rate's going to be, essentially what interest rate do you get at 0 points, but should be roughly about that 6 3/4. And one reason you may consider not buying any points is that if you're hopeful that interest rates do come down over the next, let's say, 2-3 years, then you wouldn't want to or would not want to buy points because you're going to get rid of that loan and get a new loan and bring down that interest rate. So I personally bought a home last year. I actually sold points for a couple reasons. So that's a pretty rare situation to do. Wouldn't recommend it for most people, but I put a low down payment on, so I've got PMI. We're working on doing a pretty substantial remodel, so it's kind of one of those live-in flips, if you will, to increase the value quite a bit. Anticipating that rates will come down from when we purchased to about 2 years from now. We'll do our refinance, get rid of PMI because we did that we'll finish the remodel, so we'll increase the value more than the 20% requirement for loan to value to get rid of PMI. So definitely, if you're not sure what to do, this is where, having an awesome agent that we've got here, like Max, he can help talk you through that rate stack and talk you through that's, your personal situation when you're going on a contract to try and figure out what makes the most sense. On the rental rate side, so some seasonal fluctuations going on here for the most part. Rents are probably going to be a little bit higher in the summertime than if you're trying to lease something in the middle of the winter. So again, this graph isn't too exciting yet. We've only got about 6 months of data that we've been really tracking this. Single family homes at about 2,500, condos and townhomes about 2,000, and then going to your apartments starting about 1,300 to one beds all the way down to under 800. So some really good deals on one bed apartments right now. 2s and 3s definitely get a little more expensive. All right, so let's look at the cost of owning versus renting. So overall, oops, my graph didn't quite align right, but that's okay. So making some assumptions here, but assuming that we're looking at a medium price single family home with a 5% down at that 6.76% interest rate versus our medium price rental at that 25.14 for also single family homes is how this comparison breaks down. So we're looking at over an 8-year period. So over 8 years, you're going to have about $350,000 in mortgage payments. Your all-in cost is going to be about $418,000, and that all-in cost, you really try to consider everything, including increases in taxes and insurance. We included numbers for just regular general maintenance. You might have to replace a furnace in that amount of time, or a kitchen appliance might go out. So we really try to take a really fair approach when looking at the numbers. Using historical data, we figured the total appreciation based on these numbers would be about $190,000. Your principal pay down should be about $64,000. So that means you'll have an equity gain of about $255,000. So I specifically called out as an equity gain because it's not cash in your bank account, but it could be attributed to your net worth, which, if you're in the camp where you use your single family as part of your net worth calculation, which I think you should personally, then that is a $255,000 gain in net worth. So total cost of ownership, about $418,000. Your net cost of ownership, so that's going to be your total cost minus your total cost less your equity gains, is about $163,000. The other part of this equation that we can't calculate for you because it all depends on your tax bracket would be your tax write-offs. So you've got about $218,000 in tax write-offs. So that does not mean that you actually get to write off that amount. You get to write off a percentage of that amount, which again, every little bit counts. So it's definitely worth taking that into consideration. On the renting side, so again, about $2,500 a month in rent over 8 years is about $268,000. So that's going to be your total out-of-pocket cost, because most of the maintenance is going to be on the onus of the property owner. But between those two numbers, you're at a net loss of $104,000, and you have no tax write-offs. So even in 8 years, it is way more advantageous to own a home versus renting a home. Now, again, if you're going to be moving every 2 to 3 years, definitely rent. There are reasons to rent, and there are advantages to rent. Certainly, if you're somebody who's maybe older, you're not, you're thinking, I'm not even going to be around in 8 years, and you don't want to deal with all the maintenance. Sometimes apartments can be a great option. They don't have any yard maintenance to worry about. It's going to be a much lower cost, and you can have right out your glory or golden years at that point in time. At the very bottom, we do a 30-year break-even analysis. So the question would be, what does the rental rate need to be to break even on total costs over 30 years? And that means your single-family home would have to be under $1,400. I can tell you right now that there are no medium-priced homes right now renting for $1,400. They're all going to be in that $2,000 to $2,500 range. So even to get into a $1,400 rent, single-family home rental, you're going to be, renting something the size of a studio or efficiency type condo, essentially, and not a condo, because condos would rent for less. So something that's probably less than 1,000 square feet, maybe 1 bedroom, and probably pretty old. So we use the 30-year break-even analysis because your standard home buyer is going to have a 30-year mortgage on their property. So the other really big disadvantage here is you don't own a home after 30 years. Whereas if you had purchased a home, you now own the home, your annual cost drops off significantly because you no longer have a principal and interest payment. So if you're going to be in a home for a while, definitely recommend buying a home if it makes sense and if you're able to. All right, so try and keep this in the half-hour lunch break that most people get. I think we just barely met that. Any general questions at the moment? Thoughts or comments? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for hopping on for this month's market update. And we do try to keep these about 30 minutes, so we'll aim to be back usually the second or third week of each month. So just keep an eye out for those emails, and we'll see you next month. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.